Hello and welcome to another episode of Modern Marvels. Today we're going to be talking to 4 different experts about Elon Musk and finding out about his power, the culture of his organizations, the power that he possesses, his creativity, and the mechanics of the organization.
Hi, my name is Sean Franco. I was Elon Musk's college economics professor. Today I would like to discuss how Elon uses power and how he influences the businesses that he's in. Now, Elon possesses several forms of power. The first and most important is his legitimate power. Legitimate power is power that is based on position and mutual agreement. Now, Elon, being the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla Motors, puts him in a position of legitimate power. His money is also invested in that company, which gives him that power. So Elon also has another type of power. It's called information power. Now, information power is access and control to important information. Now, an example of that will be his access to the plans for his electric car. Now, his electric car is much better than any other companies on the market, and because he has the access to the design, he definitely possesses information power. Another type of power that Elon has is, I think that a lot of Elon's use of power has been very effective. I think a lot of that starts from his use of legitimate power. He's backing what he's doing with his own money, and I think that's shown to be very successful for him because people see that and they want to follow that. So that leads to those other kinds of power like record power, and I think that makes him very effective as a leader and very effective as a CEO. So an interesting story about Elon is he actually owed a bunch of his employees back pay back when Tesla Motors was struggling, and what that would actually be as an example of reward power is withholding rewards for the success of the company, but that also puts him in a position of extreme power. And with that being said, I think that also shows a lot of referent power, or power based on his position, on people's willingness to follow him just because of who he is and his vision. So referent power is an elusive power. It's really something that you can't really tell unless you're working directly with Elon, but I think shown from the people that he's worked with and that people are staying with the company, despite not getting paid, he obviously shows that he has referent power. So that's Elon's individual power. Now, obviously, as a CEO of Tesla Motors, of SpaceX, Elon's also going to have a lot of intergroup power because he is that top position. Now, there's 2 types of intergroup power that come into place. Number 1, the control of critical resources. Now, number 1 is Tesla is actually partnering to develop the largest battery factory in the world in California. That is obviously showing that they do have a large control of resources to be able to pull something like that off. Additionally, they also have strategic contingencies. So SpaceX, for example, is working with NASA right now. A strategic contingency is activities that other groups depend on in order to complete tasks. Now, NASA, there's obviously not a lot of private companies going into space, so they have that position where they know what they're doing. They have the expertise to get the resources NASA needs up into space, and not a high competition to do that. So I think Elon is in a pretty good position as the CEO. His use of power is definitely effective. There's 2 types of power. There's personal power, and then there's also social power. So personal power is power used just for personal gain, and social power is power used for the gain of society through your individual power. Now, with that being said, obviously he's put himself into a great position as far as an individual. He's very wealthy, and he's positioned very well in a lot of circles. But also, I think it's hard to overlook his social advances that he's made for us. So his willingness to sacrifice so much for society obviously gives him a certain social edge, a certain social power, where he would be able to move a group of people if he wanted to, if he needed to. He already has that social power with those 2 companies because people that are working for him believe so much in what they're doing. So an interesting story about Elon is he works 100 hours per week. So that's incredible conditions to put yourself under. He's only sleeping 4 hours a night, and he's getting back up in the morning to work. And I think a lot of his influence in his organization is the pressure that he puts on other people to perform at that same level. So pressure isn't just the use of demands, threats, or intimidation to convince you to comply with a request or to support a proposal. And if he doesn't see that you're putting in that time, he's going to fire you. He's not going to work with people that aren't focused on the end goal of his organizations. Because his organizations are pushing the boundaries like they are, I think he also has a lot of influence in that he is very inspirational appeals. So what inspirational appeals, it's an emotional request or proposal that arouses enthusiasm by appealing to your values and ideals. So if he's working with people that believe in what he's doing, he's going to be able to influence them because they see the power that he has to really change the world. That really provides a lot of influence for Elon.
Hi, my name's Kyle Mazzarelli. I'm a leadership analyst. Unknown to most people, Elon Musk's company, Tesla, nearly went bankrupt in 2013. Elon claims that they're a few days away from running out of money completely. This was mostly due to their Model S car that they were trying to launch back in 2012. This led to a very tough non-program decision that Elon Musk had to make. Either he had to sell the company or he had to stick it out and hope they make a profit. Initially, Elon decided that he was going to sell it. Although both parties deny it, Elon tried to sell it to Google. It was believed that it was going to be a deal worth nearly $11 billion, and the contracts were written out, ready to be signed and everything. And at the last moment, Elon decided to change his mind and make a new effective decision, which was to stick it out with the company. They ended up getting out of bankruptcy completely, and they actually turned a profit for the first time in their history as a company. One of the factors that led to Elon Musk deciding this is that he is very comfortable with risk. It is clearly noticeable throughout everything he's done throughout his career. He has a very low risk aversion, so he likes to tend with taking the high risk instead of the low risk. He's been quoted to say, if something is important enough to you, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure. So that goes to just show his mentality that no matter what, try it, even though you're most likely going to fail. Elon also has a very strong availability heuristic. He has been in these type of situations many times before, so he it's pretty consistent what he does. In 2008, his company Tesla and SpaceX were both on the brink of bankruptcy. So instead of deciding to pick one and just try to get one out of bankruptcy, he tried to get both out at the same time. So he ended up doing that, and it ended up being very successful because both companies were able to make a turnaround and are now very successful companies. Another thing that helps a lot with his decisions is he has a very high creativity. So in difficult situations, he's able to think of different ways to react compared to most people. So for example, for Tesla in 2013, when he decided instead of selling it to stick it out, he had everyone in the company make sales calls to potential buyers to help sell the car, which ended up obviously causing a big turnaround for the company and making them very profitable. Also, I believe Elon has a very high escalation of commitment. He continuously goes into situations where people would believe they're bad situations and would never invest in, and he goes in and invests in it because he believes in it, and he's not afraid of failing.
I'm Nick Sampson. I'm a senior VP for Faraday Motors. What our goal is, we want to essentially build the same kind of car. We want to build a car that is electric and that doesn't use fuel. But we are also more focused on the business aspect of it. We also want to make money. We want to generate revenue, whereas Elon is putting more of his own money into it.
So as far as using his influence in the organization, I think Elon is very effective. And I think it stems because of, like I said, he's very inspirational and puts a ton of pressure on his employees. If I were working for Tesla, I would not want to screw up, and I would not want to let Elon down. Another thing that I would like to talk about are organizational politics. A lot of times, conditions that encourage political activity in organizations are unclear goals, autocratic decision-making, ambiguous lines of authority, scarce resources, and also uncertainty. And I think Elon does a good job at cutting down on politics in his organization because he is trying to give his employees the resources to be successful in their projects. But at the same time, I think a lot of it has to do with because Elon is very goal-oriented. He wants to have his grasp on everything, and because he does want to have a grasp on everything, he wants people to be aligned in the organizational goals rather than with their personal goals. He rewards team successes.
In my opinion, Elon Musk is an effective leader. He's an idea man, and he's not afraid of taking risks. While Elon, he's an effective leader, but I don't know if I believe that he has the right qualities to be an effective manager. So initially, when Elon started Tesla, he reached out to people that were the best in their field, and me being an engineer for Jaguar, I was one of his top candidates. So I was drawn to him because of how he had a dream, and he also had resources, and so that's what really drew me to him. However, as you can see now, I work for Faraday, and the reasons why I left were because he had so many engineers together, but we all had conflicting ideas, and I think to be an effective manager, between people there, all trying to have their own idea, and we just couldn't find an easy way to incorporate all of them together. He is a good leader. He's inspirational, but when it came to management, he wasn't very effective. I think that he was so excited about starting up this company, and he wanted results as fast as he could, and in doing so, he hired lots of people, and not everyone got along very well, because everyone has their own idea about what's best. Well, I believe that Elon uses a more democratic style leadership. So essentially what Tesla is doing is building a car that hasn't been built yet. And in order to have people use the more creative side of thinking, they have to have a more democratic style of leader.
All right. My name is Steven. I am the Tesla and SpaceX psychologist for the firms. Musk is definitely more of a democratic leader, and that really shows in the industry he works in and the companies that he's decided to build. One man cannot run as many companies as he does and be an expert in rocket science and automobiles, so that really affects his style of leadership. He can't be autocratic because he can't make every decision because he doesn't know everything. So he has to do more crowdsourcing and opinions, and he has to listen to experts to really make sure that his decisions are sound.
So looking at the path goal model, I believe Elon, he's setting a path for his followers, and the ultimate goal is creating a car that rids the world of its need for consuming massive amounts of oil. I think Elon Musk has certainly inherited some traits that have helped him get to where he is today, although there's little scientific evidence to point out a strong correlation between having certain traits and those traits, making someone a better leader than another trait. However, I must say that his good looks and overwhelming confidence, along with his photographic memory, certainly haven't inhibited him in any way in gaining followers. So the two important dimensions are initiating structure and consideration. Elon defines roles within his organization by appointing specific positions to people. So therefore, he fulfills that. But in consideration, he does have consideration for his employees, and oftentimes I think he has almost too much consideration. That might sound odd, but part of the reason why I decided to leave is because he gave everyone equal consideration about what they think each piece of the car should be, and that just made it hard to move on. efficiently. And so oftentimes we would, instead of actually working on the car, we'd be, having debates about what should the next move be. But I also think that's important, but I think it was a little excessive. I believe Elon is overall more production-oriented than employee-oriented. He wants to build a machine, a car, that will eventually rid the world of its need of natural fuel. And I think he'll do anything to get there. Whether that means, he gets rid of someone here and there, I think he'll do it. I would describe Elon Musk as overall being a favorable leader. His leader-member relations are good. People who work for him want to work for him, which is ideal. And when I was there, we were all working together to make an amazing product. There was a fair amount of structure to the job. We were hired for specific spots, within the company, and our leadership, our role was defined. Okay, looking at the situational leadership model, I would classify followers of Elon to be high in follower readiness because they're willing and able followers. They're hired for a specific job, they want to be there and whatnot. Elon has a lot of respect for his employees, but he ultimately does making the final decisions.
How have Elon Musk's values shaped the company?
That's an interesting question because it really ties into like I said previously, the company culture. He is the textbook definition of a workaholic. And part of the problem with that is that people don't always see the work culture when they think of Tesla and SpaceX. They see the results. You've seen an electric car and it's really cool, or the rocket that goes to the International Space Station, and everyone gets really excited about that. And but they don't know the process that led them to get there. And Musk's values work, and that's about it, honestly. He has this really long end game vision of making the world a better place. That's his terminal value. But in terms of instrumental values, he only really values work, and that's not going as well with employees because he doesn't present himself that way. And that disconnect between what people think will happen, the anticipatory stage of coming to work for SpaceX and Tesla, and then when they encounter that disconnect and the cognitive dissonance that's created from that is so big that it's actually driving a lot of people away from the company. Musk is quoted as saying that he wants to build a roller coaster in one of their factories, a fully functioning roller coaster, because Google has a slide and he wants to compete with that. But this is also the man who said vacation will kill you. And one of his employees, when Tesla first started, told reporters that we were working 20 hours a day, he was working 23. So that disconnect between, like, I want to do fun things, but by the way, you're going to have to work so much that you never actually have time to use the fun things, is something that a lot of people aren't anticipating. And that, in terms of his ability to lead the company, I think he's very forceful once he has made a decision in driving the company. And you see that in things like when he bailed his company out with his own money, that there's an incredible display of devotion to the company in that, and it really won a lot of people over and turned him from being just the CEO into more of a transformational leader within his own company. I think he won a lot of people over, and that, while that event hangs around, it has not been enough to keep him from all harm within the company. Recently, SpaceX has been sued for not paying employees. They were fired without notice and then did not receive the back pay that they should have under California law. And this seems to have been more of a misinterpretation of the law than anything done with criminal intent. So in terms of the ethics of the work culture and the direction that Elon Musk is pushing it, I would have to say it seems like he's headed in an ethical direction. His intents are good, and I don't think he really means anyone harm. It just seems to have been an accident.
Elon Musk is most certainly a transformational leader. I believe that he relies on his own personal attributes to inspire and excite people. A prime example is when 2008, during the recession, having SpaceX and having Tesla together, was almost detrimental to him because he almost lost money on both of them. But he invested the rest of his capital into Tesla, and it's still here today.
The important thing to know about Tesla and SpaceX's culture is that right now they're really at a turning point for both because they're starting to achieve mainstream success, which means that they're not really a startup anymore, and in the conventional sense of the word, this small company that's going to come and change the way that mainstream companies do business, because they're starting to become a mainstream company. And the problem that they're running into now is that the work culture that worked for being a startup no longer is as beneficial to them now that they are more of a mainstream company. In the industry, they had an adaptive style of culture, which really works well for smaller firms that are trying to disrupt a market because they have to make these day-to-day minute decisions and really change with their environment. And that's their nature because they're trying to compete with these much larger firms. And the problem that they're running into now is not that they're becoming a larger firm, that style doesn't work anymore. They're not really establishing themselves the way that they should be, and that's causing some conflict internally. One of the things that they kind of lack is more of a fit culture, which is where firms in an industry, for the most part, behave in a similar fashion. And Tesla and SpaceX don't really fit that mold because they're kind of stuck in that startup mentality, even though they really should be starting to change over towards a more mainstream model, and they know that, but it's not going as well as it should be. So when they don't behave similarly to other bigger firms, people start to get nervous, and that has not been the greatest for their business. And this also hurts their own internal culture and prevents them from building a strong culture, because since they are not sure whether they should be an adaptive or a fit culture, that internal conflict really prevents them from building a strong culture. His values in that sense don't really match up with the values of the company or really the employees in the direction that they would rather take it. They seem to be looking for much more of a work-life balance, and he is perfectly content only working. I would say the true nature of the work culture is starting to come out now, whereas before everyone just kind of envisioned Tesla and SpaceX as these meccas of innovation, kind of shrouded in mystery, where no one was really sure in terms of the public what was going on. But now that more and more employees have left and more people have come in and the companies themselves have grown, they've become more established and their culture has been more identifiable.
As you can see, Elon Musk's characteristics make him a good leader but not always a good manager. It's fairly accurate to say he would not be a servant leader. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.